Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am not sitting in front of my movie corner. I'm at my girlfriend's place in Kansas. I'm wearing my How Sharp Is Your Sword t-shirt, and judging by the frame around me, I'm doing something a little bit different. This is actually my second foray into the flat earth stuff, and I thought I would kind of just, because I've been doing the Bible verses for flat earth debunk normally, I thought I would do this video because SciManDan, even though I'm subscribed to his channel, he's doing a thing where he's doing a video a day for the whole month of May, okay, to honor his like 300,000th view or 300 millionth view or something like that. And so what I decided was that I was going to go ahead and he was covering this video, The Embarrassing Truth Regarding Blue Origin and Katy Perry by Level Earth Observer. For those of you that may not know, because maybe you're new to Flat Earth, or you're new to my channel and you're not sure exactly what Flat Earth is, Level Earth Observer is one of the oldest Flat Earthers on YouTube, okay? And when I say oldest Flat Earthers, what I mean by that is that he was one of the first guys to really kind of bring this into the mainstream. And him and Dave Weiss and like the Globebusters channel and some of those guys are some of the ones that are kind of what I would classify as the oldest flat earthers on the platform. And Level Earth Observer was actually invited to the final experiment. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that was Will Duffy's experiment, where he took Jaron Campanella and Austin Whitsitt, Dave McKeegan, and one other gal, and I think a producer for Candace Owens, and then MC Toon and one other guy crowdfunded to go, and like the 9 or 10 of those people all met in Punta Arenas, Chile, and then flew down to spend like 3 or 4 days in Antarctica, and their flight was changed because they had a storm front moving in, and so they wanted to make sure that they got out before the storm front hit so that they could get back to Punta Arenas, because a lot of them had flights that they had to get on. And so, of course, all the flat earthers like Level Earth Observer and all that kind of stuff were calling fake, we're calling this, we're calling that, which we'll deal with later on in the video. One of my biggest problems with a guy like Level Earth Observer, and it's also one of the problems that I saw when Dan was trying to debunk this video, there were a few things that he could have brought up that I thought that he absolutely should have brought up, but didn't, okay? And so we're going to get into that because he's going to make some stupid claims in this video, okay? Claims that he neither backs up nor researches nor knows anything about. He just makes assertions and then calls it stupid and fake and then moves on. And this is something that I've noticed atheists do, flat earthers do, a lot of people do. They don't necessarily do any research. And what I'm going to show you is that the Blue Origin New Sheperd flight, okay, was real. Okay, absolutely 100% real. And I'm not going to sit here and try to make some kind of a claim without showing you some of the things that I think kind of clinch it and make his arguments look idiotic, because he's going to make some stupid claims. Now, one thing you have to know about the New Sheperd Blue Origin capsule, okay, is that it is essentially a glorified airplane flight for $100,000 to $200,000. Okay, people pay $100,000 to $200,000. They go get on this capsule, okay, and they essentially you get on a rocket, it launches you up about 62 miles, which is what's known as the common line, which is where space begins, technically, okay? Most things are above that, way above that, to be called in space. But you're technically in space at that point. And then the capsule goes up, okay? It goes up, and then the thing detaches, okay? And then the capsule fires up a little bit further, and then it hovers there for, I think it's like 30 to 60 minutes, okay? Allowing you to experience the weightlessness, allowing you to experience space, see the curve of the Earth, see that the Earth is a globe. You'll see that Katy Perry here has a flower. They were kind of like throwing them around, and they were kind of doing things, okay? There's cameras all over the interior of the thing. Now, the biggest thing that's going to come into play is you can see just over Katy Perry's left shoulder, you can see the door, okay? That door is going to become very important, and I will show you from Katy Perry's own video that that door has a handle on the inside. That will become very important very quickly, okay? So let's jump into this and let's see what he has to say.
Today I'm going to address this Katy Perry stroke Blue Origin charade. Not that I need to, because not many people are actually believing this silly publicity stunt. Even people at my work are calling this out, and they're mainstream believers. But I'm going to show you...
He's talking about globe believers, okay? Now, I think the reason why people thought this was faked was because it was Katy Perry, there was another celebrity on it, and it was a publicity stunt, okay? I mean, Jeff Bezos did this to kind of prove that women could go to space just as easily as men, because most New Shepard flights contain a mix of males and females, and there's like a whole bunch of other, there's been a whole bunch of space flights, but there's only been, I think this was like the first all-female flight in like 60 years or 40 years or something like that. Okay, it's been a long time since there's been an actual space flight of all exclusively women on the capsule or on whatever flight that they're going on. Okay, so this was a publicity stunt. No, I mean, nobody's disputing that, okay? So I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it for you. It was, okay? It was a total publicity stunt. Doesn't mean it's fake, but it was a publicity stunt because Jeff Bezos wanted to show that his capsule could go to space with all women on board and return, and everything would be fine. Now, I think a lot of the controversy stems from the fact that Jeff Bezos usually is the one, especially on like the first like 3 or 4 New Shepard manned flights, because SciManDan mentions this, the first 16 flights were unmanned, and from like 17 to 31, which is the one that Katy Perry was on, those have all been manned. And I think for like the first like 10 of those flights, Bezos was the one walking over and unlocking the door, okay, to let the astronauts out as a publicity stunt to show people, hey, look at this. My program works. And I think he even went on one. I think he even went on one of the flights, and like he had one of his other guys that he trusts come up and open up the door, because all they do is they put the handle in, because everybody gets strapped into their seats. And we'll look at a couple of interior shots of the New Shepard. I'll show the video that Katy Perry did. I'll show that here in a minute. And basically, what you're going to see is that the outside of the door is smooth with a hole in it, and inside that hole is a little bolt. And what they do is there's an identical handle that those people have. Okay, they strap everybody in. They step out of the capsule. They close the capsule, and then they basically stick this thing on there, and then they lock the door into place. It's no different than an airline door. If you've ever boarded an aircraft, okay, the airline door is exactly as thick as the actual airline. It's the airliner itself, okay? And when they close the door, okay, they both lock it, and then there's a guy that has a little handle that he pushes it down and then closes the door, okay? And when it gets into the terminal and they pull it up to the thing, a person will usually walk up the gantry, okay, and they'll open up that door and they'll pull up that handle, which unlocks the door, and then they'll both, with the stewardess or airline hostess help, they'll go click, and then they'll open the door, okay? And that's basically what Bezos does, or one of his people do, when one of these new Sheperd flights returns, is they will walk up. They will tell the people, don't open the door unless there's an absolute emergency. We'll open the door for you. And what they will do is they will just walk out with that identical door handle that's on the inside, and they will pop it in, and then they will open up the door, okay? And then they will open the door, and the door opens inward. And there's a reason for the door opening inward, which we'll get to.
2 clips that just destroy the mainstream narrative regarding this so-called space mission.
It really doesn't.
Bear with me.
Bear with you. Yeah, right.
So we'll start with this now infamous clip of this so-called space capsule and the caravan door hatch.
Okay, so he's talking about this caravan door hatch, because he says that the hatch is flimsy. And what he means by that is that when the door opens, okay, the hinges on it are well oiled, and so it opens right away, okay? It just opens right inside, and it kind of flops a little bit. And so he's gonna say that, oh man, that door is so flimsy. Well, you can do the same thing with your car door. Okay? If I open up my car door, okay, like super fast, right? What happens? It bumps, and then it'll come back and close. Does that mean my door's flimsy? No, my door's rigid. Okay, my car door is rigid. It's the same thing with this. Okay, he's never seen anything of the new Sheperd beyond this one clip, because he dismisses it all as fake. He doesn't do any research on it. He just looks at it and says it's all fake. That's it. That's his whole entire argument. I say argument loosely, because it's his claim. Okay, he has no data to back it up, and we'll get into that.
Saw the stars. I saw the curvature of the earth. You know what's going to come out of her.
So we see the participants in this charade on the inside of the capsule open the caravan door, no stress. Remember, this is supposed to be an air pressure capsule.
Okay, so again, just like with an airplane, okay, they pressurize the airplane before you take off. After they close the door, okay, they pressurize the airplane. It's what that rushing noise is, and you kind of feel your ears pop. I'm betting Elio's probably never been on an airplane before, okay? So he probably doesn't know what pressurized means. Pressurized just means that when they lock everybody in, they push a button, and the interior of the cabin is sealed, and the air inside is sealed inside. If you were to then pop the hatch, if you were to then try to open up the door, there might be a little bit of a push against it. But honestly, you're not going to get much, okay? Because at this point, the capsule is sitting at the place where it was pressurized, okay? So honestly, there's no pressure inside the cabin because it's the same pressure that's on the outside, okay? Now, this was where the women were probably kind of wanting to get out, okay? Because they were waiting because Bezos is standing right next to the capsule, okay? This is Jeff Bezos right here, okay? And he's got the handle, or they're waiting for the handle to come, one of the two, and he's going to open it up. Now, you can see just by this person's wrist, you can see this little black dot right here. That little black dot is where the handle fits in, okay? It fits in, and then they open it, okay? You'll see Bezos do that here in a second, because he's going to let the clip play. And he's going to put it in, and he's going to go like this, and then the door is going to fall open. Basically what happened is, and I'll show you this here in a second, is that the handle normally fits into a little slot right behind, there's like a little metal plate, and then the handle drops down behind that plate. But anybody on the inside can walk over and grab that and pull it up, okay, to release the door. And that's probably what happened. The girls inside were probably not told, or were probably told, we'll let you out. Okay, Bezos wants to be the one to let you out. They probably were excited to be back on terra firma, and they were like, we want out. They probably had to go to the bathroom. They probably had some things that they wanted to do, and they've been sitting in there for a while, and they were like, we want out. And they probably just went over and just pulled up the handle and started to open the door. And this technician is going over and telling them, no. Jeff Bezos wants to let you out, guys. Okay? So close the door, lock it. We'll let you out in a minute, okay? Just give us a minute or two here. We'll have him come and open the door for you. Because he wanted to be the one to open the door. They ruined the moment. It's the women. That's on the women, not Jeff Bezos. They ruined the moment for Jeff Bezos.
Yes, I know you can supposedly open it from the inside.
No, you can open it from the inside, okay? Because if there's an issue with the capsule, okay, you can open it from the inside. That's the whole point, okay? Now, I know a lot of these people, especially Elio, think that the Apollo missions were faked, okay? But Apollo 1 had a fire, and there's a reason why that door opens A, inward, and B, has a handle on the inside. It is exactly for this reason, okay? Apollo astronauts, when they redesigned the hatch, okay, they actually redesigned the hatch to be openable from the inside in case the guys needed to get out. They couldn't get out from before, okay? And that's a problem. And so what ends up happening is that these other people, is that all doors from then on were designed to be openable from the inside. Okay? Even like the space shuttle had doors that opened from the inside because the guys had to get out. Okay? Everybody would put on their suits, and then they would open up the door, and then they would be able to go out into the cargo bay to help offload satellites and do all that kind of stuff, and then come back in, and then, you know, they'd be able to do things that way. So that's kind of the whole point, is that sometimes they need to be able to get out. Other times, they need to be able to open the doors to get out in an emergency situation, in case anything goes wrong. Okay? We don't live in a perfect world. Things are going to happen.
But the flimsiness of this door, like I said, it resembles a caravan door.
No, it doesn't.
And it just shows you the fact they've opened it, and then Jeff has this big key to open it in a minute. Just shows you it's all a charade. And then
no, it just shows that the women were a little bit overzealous and opened the door and ruined Jeff Bezos' big moment of going and opening the door himself, and then basically like being able to open it with a flourish and be able to, be able to like hold his hand out for the women to come out. That was going to be his big moment, was he was going to be a gentleman, and he was going to hold the women's hand as they came out of the door. Are you stupid? I think the answer to this question is yes. Okay? No one should ever take this man seriously. Okay? Level Earth Observer. No one should take this man seriously.
the next clip I'm going to show you is just going to destroy this silly pantomime.
No, it doesn't.
Her mouth, but really her heart.
And is that Jeff Bezos out there right by the capsule?
So you can see this little handle, okay, in Jeff Bezos' hand right here against the new Sheperd capsule. You could kind of see it when he was walking, okay? That's, like I said, it goes in this little tiny dot right here. Now, that dot is probably about, yay big around in real life. On this picture, because where the person's standing with the camera away from the capsule, it looks kind of small. But that basically what he does is he sticks that handle in, okay, and he's going to move it up like this, and then the door's going to fall inward. And probably because when he does that, the women probably were helping him open the door, and so the door fell backwards into them. Okay, so
Kind of hard to see.
Good.
So here we go.
Yeah. Here
Okay,
goes Jeff
so he's going to
Bezos
stick
to
the handle
open
in the door.
hatch.
Okay, and he's going to open it. There it goes.
Ridiculous. Swung open like a caravan door.
Now, again, okay, it opens inward. And there is a thing called gravity. Okay? So when he opens that door's going to fall inward. Okay? Because it's heavy. Now, let me jump over here. This is the door of New Sheperd. Okay? This is Katy Perry going inside of New Sheperd. It's a 40-second video. Okay?
Okay, I'm going to show you the capsule that we
So there's the capsule.
have
There's the door. Okay?
been training in for the last few days. Here I am. Seat number 2.
So this is the seat that they sit in. Okay? And basically, they get strapped into those seats for the launch. And after they get up there, then they come on the radio and they tell them, okay, now you can now you can loosen your restraints, take off your belts, and you can float around and do whatever you want, blah, blah, blah.
This is my call name, Feather. Here on the New Sheperd. I think I'm going to sing. I'm going to sing a little bit. I got to sing in space. And these are
Okay.
all
So these are all the windows.
of my astronaut girly friends.
And there's the door. Okay? So you can see how thick this door is. It's the same thickness as the capsule itself. Okay? There's a reason for that. Because as the pressure inside pushes against the negative pressure outside, because you're next to space, okay, it pushes that door seal shut even tighter. Okay? So even if they were to try to open that in space, I mean, it would be a very bad idea. If they were to open that while they were up there next to the common line, okay, they would get blasted out into space. But they wouldn't be able to because the pressure would hold it together. Now, you'd be able to force it open, but you would get blown out. Hi, Moogie. What are you doing, kitty? I have a kitty right next to me. You probably can't see him on there. But here's the handle that I'm talking about, okay? And you can see that there's like this metal plate, okay? But there's the handle behind it. And that's all the women did, okay? They opened it up, okay? Because they've been training on it. Okay? And they probably were like, oh, we totally forgot that we weren't supposed to, like, do this ourselves. Okay? Because we're not supposed to, do that, blah, blah, blah. And you can see here that, like, here's a New Sheperd mission, NS-31. Okay, this is the actual Sheperd mission. This is NS-28. Okay, which is, if you want to see what the interior of it looked like, these guys are up here. Okay,
Oh
in
my
space.
god, that's space.
Yeah, and so yeah, everybody here is in space. Are you gonna come across me? Is that what you want to do? Huh? Well, come here. Come on. Come on, Floofy Dragon. Come on. You're looking at me a weird way. I'm trying to make a video. You want to be a star? Well, come here. Come here. This is Moogie, everyone. Yeah, he's not mange. He's just shaved. Okay. You want to sit down? No, this is my mouse. You can't play with that. Okay. But anyway, so this is New Sheperd 28. Okay, this is when it says apogee, this means that this is when they're at the top of the flight. Okay, and you can see that they're all weightless.
This is Earth.
And you can
space.
see the curve of the Earth. It's not a circle. It's not a flat disc, folks. It's a globe.
I gotta get
Try that again.
Look at that Earth. Look at that Earth.
I'm here. it. Guys, look.
Hey, there you go.
We're in space right now. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So you can see that they're actually... So what this means is that they are above the common line. No, Moogie, that's mine. You're not going to play with that. What, do you need some loves? So basically what that means is that they're above the common line, okay, where the gravity of the Earth they no longer feel an attraction to the Earth with gravity, okay? That's why they're floating, okay? This is where Alan Sheperd and John Glenn and all of those guys in the Gemini and Mercury programs, okay, especially the Gemini program. Again, this cat is just shaved. He's not mange, okay? We shave him for control, okay, for shedding control and because he gets really hot in the summertime here in Kansas, okay, so we do that. Yes, kitty. Okay, and so the problem is that Elio has now made a claim, okay, that this door doesn't mean anything. It's too flimsy. No, it's not. It's right there.
And again. Once more, and I'll zoom in on this ridiculous build quality, so-called hatch for a spacecraft.
So actually, I think what it is that it's a. I don't think it's actually. I think the tool is not one of those. I think what it is there's a bolt in the center, and then there's just two little lines, and then he just spins it like this. Okay. Ooh, I think there might be another one coming down. You coming down, Dev, or are you just gonna stay up there? I might just be stretching. He likes to sleep up there. He's one of those cats that loves to go to sleep up top. If he does come down, he'll come down behind me. So, yeah, basically the whole point... Ow. Sorry, he's biscuit being. So, the problem with what these people are trying to say here is that, you know, oh, it can't do that. We'll never be able to, you know, do this, blah, blah, blah. They'll also try to say that there's some kind of firmament. Hi, Dev. That's Devlin. And so, yeah, it's the only embarrassing thing here is Elio's ignorance. Okay? Because again, as the door fell inward, because there's no difference in pressure, okay, then the door just falls inward naturally because there's a curvature to the spacecraft, okay? And the top of the door, okay, is curved up, so it's going to have the center of gravity, the center of balance, is going to be top heavy, and so it's going to fall inside. And they did that for a reason, because they figured if something happens, those people need to be able to get out of the capsule fast. Again, just like with Apollo 1, they couldn't get the astronauts out when the fire started. Okay? And those 3 astronauts burned to death on that pad because they couldn't get them out fast enough.
Like I said, ridiculous. Now, we're supposed to believe you've got 4 ladies in there, in boiler...
6. Okay?
Suits, been blasted off into a rocket, went 62 miles up, right to the edge of so-called space, the Kármán line. Their protection was a caravan door and some boiler suits.
Yes. Because again, okay, it's just like an aircraft. That's all the New Shepard capsule is. It is literally a glorified aircraft for $100,000 to $200,000 per person. That's it. Yeah, Good luck with that, buddy. Okay? Good luck disproving that. Because now you're going to have to disprove that airplanes actually fly. Because that's essentially what's happening here. See, these guys have this notion that, okay, if you're going to go to space, quote unquote, okay, you have to be able to go up. Okay? And we're going to talk about this here in a second.
That's what we're supposed to, that's what we're expected to believe. Now, what's going to make it even worse now is what I'm going to show you.
The suit by itself is roughly about $125,000. Altogether, a fully dressed pilot's about $250,000.
Okay. I want you to look at this suit. Okay? I'm going to back this up just a tiny bit. Okay? You see what this guy's carrying? What is that right there? A hose. Okay? That's a hose. Okay? Because the U-2 spy plane, okay, we still use it today for certain things. The U-2 spy plane has a oxygen, a water tank, and a food dispenser. Okay? And the pilot cannot open his mask because they don't pressurize the cockpit interior. Okay? It's the reason why a fighter jet has supplemental oxygen as well. Because when they go up high, or when they pull maneuvers and stuff like that, okay, they have to have that mask on, okay, to keep a continuous stream of oxygen. And if they're changing altitude rapidly or anything like that, they need to be able to do that. Okay? And that's the point. Okay? They're not doing that. And they're also not going into space like the Dragon X, like the SpaceX Dragon capsules, okay? Or like the Apollo programs, or like the Space Shuttle did, okay? Like the International Space Station. They're not going to the International Space Station. They're just going up 62 miles, and they're sitting up there. They're not actually going into orbit. They're not actually doing any of that stuff.
$1 million.
A helmet ranges about $60,000 on its own. It's a lot.
Now we're discussing the U-2 pilot who flies.
And let's just also ignore the fact that the Earth curve exists right outside the window as well. I'm going to go sit. What are you doing, Kitty? Okay. I'm trying to do stuff. You're not helping. All right. So, that's... So, ignoring the curve... He's going to completely ignore the curve.
At a surface ceiling height of approximately 70,000 feet. Convert that to miles. That's 13 miles up.
Yes. So, what we do is we run right over here to the U-2 pilot's partial pressure suit and helmet. Okay? Oh, look! Tubes. Okay? There's a reason for that. Here, come here. Come here. I'm holding this. I can't hold you. I'm sorry. What? I know. I'm crazy. Okay? So, the CIA developed the U-2 to fly at altitudes well above 63,000 feet, where human blood starts to bubble without artificial air pressure. U-2 pilots wore a form-fitting insulated pressure suit to protect them from depressurization and low temperatures during flight. If the suit looks like something of an old-fashioned girdle, there's a reason for that. CIA contracted with David Clark, corset and brassiere manufacturer, for its construction. Okay? And this is what it looks like when it's inflated. Okay? And there's a reason for that. Oh. Makes Felix Baumgartner's look a lot more interesting, doesn't it? Because this gentleman, okay, Colonel Joe Kittinger, parachuted from 102,000 feet. Okay, 19 miles. Higher than the U-2 spy plane. What's he wearing? A pressure suit. Because there's no oxygen in the capsule, because the capsule would have to have extra weight, and they were using helium, okay, to get those balloons up that high. There he is. Okay? Now, let me talk about this. On August 16th, 1960, Excelsior 3 launched from Tularosa, New Mexico. Carried Kittinger to 102,800 feet. During the ascent, pressurization on his right glove failed. His hand swelled to nearly twice its normal size, paining him a lot. Afraid he would be ordered to jump early because of the malfunction, Kittinger did not report the problem until he arrived at jumping altitude. As Kittinger launched from the highest step in the world, he rolled over on his back to glance at the balloon against the black sky. He fell for 16 seconds. He fell for 16 seconds before the pilot chute popped, followed by the drogue that stabilized him. At 90,000 feet, he reached an incredible top speed of 625.2 miles per hour. His main parachute deployed after a 4.5-minute free fall. At that point, he had fallen for a distance of over 16 miles. So how high was he up? 102.8. Okay? Which is 19 miles. Okay? So he free fall for 16. He emerged from the clouds at 15,000 feet. 2 helicopters circled around him as he descended to the desert floor. Prior to landing, Kittinger was supposed to release the instrument box beneath his container. Nevertheless, only one side released due to the swelling on his right hand, so he landed with its additional weight. Luckily, he only bruised and didn't break his leg upon landing. It was very dangerous. The entire sequence of jumping from the balloon to landing was 13 minutes and 45 seconds. Here's what he said for National Geographic. At 0 count, I step into space. No wind whistles or billows my clothing. I have absolutely no sensation of the increasing speed with which I fall. Which is funny because Felix Baumgartner said the same exact thing. I drop, facing the clouds. Then I roll over on my back and find an eerie sight. The white balloon contrasts starkly with the sky as black as night, though it's 7:12 in the morning and I am bathed in sunshine. Again, I look for stars, but see none. Because why? He's bathed in sunshine. Okay? Even at that altitude, you can't see the stars because the sunlight is brighter than the stars around you. Okay? Everybody who's on the ISS reports that. When you're on the sun side, you cannot see the stars. When you're on the dark side of the Earth, you can see the stars because there's no sun. Duh. I'm on the ground, apparently in one piece. I am surrounded by sand, salt grass, and sage, but no Garden of Eden could look more beautiful. The elapsed time since bailout is 13 minutes, 45 seconds. The helicopters land, and George Post, Gene Fritz, Bo, and Dr. Dick Chubb dash towards me, all wearing big smiles. They remove my helmet and heavy flight garments. Dick looks at the swollen hand with concern. 3 hours later, the swelling will have disappeared with no ill effect. As clean, fresh air washes over me, I say I'm very glad to be back with you all. So what happened is that they want to make sure, okay, that when things happen, okay, that if a pilot had to bail out at a certain altitude, could he survive? Do not chew that. Thank you. My tower that I'm doing with my girlfriend, the Aladel Tower on the Sasquatch and Sunflower thing, is sitting on the table right here because we had to move it for purposes. And so my girlfriend and I were working on it, and so we were doing some different things like that. Okay, let's go back to Elio here for a minute.
Okay. Look at the setup the U-2 pilot needs inside of his cabin.
Yeah, because it's not pressurized, dummy. If it was pressurized, then he wouldn't need the flight suit, but it's not pressurized.
It's very expensive because it's their last line of defense flying in the U-2. It's very unique because it provides overall the survivability of their life. Because our U-2 pilots fly high sorties and they fly for long periods of time, we got to keep them hydrated, we got to keep them fed. So once the full pressure suit is locked down, they cannot open it again until they recover from their sortie. If by instance they're flying at the altitudes that they fly at and they would open their helmet up to like scratch their nose, if at that instant they were to lose cabin pressure, the blood in their body would instantaneously boil and be instantaneous death. So
he literally just said what that article was talking about. Okay? This guy literally just backed up what this article about the pressure suit just talked about. Okay? Human blood starts to bubble without artificial air pressure. Okay? Without artificial air pressure. The people inside the New Sheperd capsule have air pressure similar to ground pressure. Okay? It's only 14 point something psi, or maybe 20 at the most. Okay? Depending on where they're launching from. I don't know where New Sheperd launches from. Okay?
So we have our pilots, we tell them once they close down, do not open until they land.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a very good day. And bearing in mind, this is the U-2 pilot. He flies.
Because, again, why do they need that? Because the cabin's not pressurized.
Flies at 70,000 feet, which is approximately 13.2 miles up, I believe. But inside the cockpit, of his high altitude plane, he has to wear a specialized spacesuit. Remember?
No, he wears a pressure suit, not a spacesuit. Okay, spacesuits are different. Spacesuits are meant to stay pressurized in the vacuum of space. That's not a spacesuit, folks. That's a pressure suit. There's a huge difference. If that guy were to actually go to space and like open up one of the doors, okay, his suit would immediately burst. It would blow up like a balloon and then burst because there's negative pressure outside of him, okay, and then the pressure inside would cause that pressure suit to inflate and it would burst because it's not designed for that kind of extreme stress. It is a pressure suit, not a space suit. Get it right, Elio.
He's locked down inside the plane. And then inside of the plane, he's wearing a space suit because of the environment. He's, very high up.
Well, yeah, it's just like being on the top of Mount Everest. Okay? They require oxygen on the top of Mount Everest. Only very few people have ever made it to the summit of Everest without supplemental oxygen. Okay? And most people do that by training with those masks that you can like dial down the amount of oxygen that you receive, okay, so that they get good at being able to exert themselves. Are you going by Dev? They get good at exerting themselves, okay, at being able to move and being able to do things because of that.
And should he lose cabin pressure where he was scratching his nose, his blood would boil instantly.
Yes, because again, there's no pressure. You just said it. If he loses cabin pressure and he's scratching his nose, his blood would boil instantly. Duh. Dude, you just debunked yourself. You literally just debunked yourself. Are you trying to get by Dev? Okay. You literally just debunked yourself, Elio. If he loses cabin pressure while he's scratching his nose. Yeah, which is why they tell him what? Don't open the helmet. There, at 62 miles up, inside of a pressurized metal container that's only pressurized to about 14 to 20 psi, okay, And what? And what? Their blood's not gonna boil because they're pressurized. It's just like being in an airplane. Okay? It's why when you have an emergency on an airplane, they tell you about the oxygen mask that comes down, and they tell you to take it and fit it over your face and make sure that oxygen starts flowing freely. Okay, you pull on the tube a little bit to ensure the flow of oxygen, because if you don't, you'll pass out. Are you an idiot? I think the answer is yes, because you just debunked yourself.
And he would die. And yet we're expected to believe that these women in boiler suits with a caravan door protecting them from the harshness of near so-called space went 62 miles up in a space capsule.
Yes. Because again, the door is super thick. And here's the thing. There have been, like, I think 15 New Sheperd flights. Because that was the 15 manned New Sheperd flights. Okay? Number 31 was like the 15th manned flight. Okay? When I say manned, I mean, you know, people crewed. Okay? People inside the capsule. That's what I mean by manned. I'm not talking about, you know, it was all men. But it's a manned space flight. Okay? Because most people don't realize that, like, when they look at some of the early, like, Gemini, even Sputnik wasn't even that much. I mean, the guy was doing that. Dev, stop rubbing your face on that. Stop trying to bite everything. You're crazy. So that's the problem. That's the problem with Elio here, is that he's trying to add incredulity without any evidence beyond, here's a U-2 spy plane that flies at a certain altitude, is not pressurized like the New Sheperd capsule is, okay? And they have to, you know, fly out there and blah, blah, blah. Now, the reason why the guys, like Apollo astronauts, you know, like Russian cosmonauts, and like our guys that would fly the space shuttles, the Dragon capsule, people wear big suits, is when they lift off, okay, they're experiencing a lot more G's because they have to go fast. They have to go a lot faster to get out into orbit, okay? And so there's a lot of stress, more stress that's put on the body. Like if you saw Apollo 13 where they go clunk and then clunk when he's like, get ready for a little jolt, fellas, and then they're like clunk, clunk, you know, and then you hear Kevin Bacon's Hayes like, that was some little jolt. Yeah, that's because that's what you have to do to be able to get into space, okay? And so there was a lot more stress, and so the helmet, they wore padded suits, and then they had helmets that actually would pad their head so that they wouldn't, so that when they had that thump, that when their head went back, they didn't crack through the glass, okay? Or they didn't crack their heads open on the metal frames of the seats, okay? Those were like bulletproof glass, okay? Because that had been around, that had been a thing for a long time by that point, okay? We knew what bulletproof glass was, and we used it on those Apollo helmets because we knew that those guys were going to be going through certain stresses like that. But you'll notice that those were not the suits that they wore on the moon, okay? The suits that they wore on the moon were completely different, okay? Because the suits that they were wearing, again, were more pressure suits just to kind of help them survive the extreme stress of liftoff, okay? And you'll notice that when they came back, they weren't wearing those suits on the re-entry because again, the re-entry was just heat, okay? If they were wearing those suits, they'd probably pass out because of the heat, okay? This guy doesn't have to worry about that. This U-2 pilot doesn't have to worry about that because he's just up there flying around, okay? He's up at, you know, like 70,000 feet flying around. That's it,
No spacesuit. Like I said, 4 boiler suits, or whatever it was,
6.
and a caravan door.
It's not a caravan door.
Oh my God! I saw the stars. I saw the curvature of the Earth. You know what's going to come out of her mouth, but really her heart.
And is that Jeff Bezos?
So you can see the tool right here in Jeff Bezos' hand, and all that is, again, it's just a little door handle. That's it. It's not a specialized tool. It's just a door handle that they use to lock the capsule door. Okay, it's no different than like, if you've ever seen airliners, okay, if you've ever flown and you see the airline doors, okay, they have to open them from both sides at the same time. Okay, so one of the flight attendants on the inside will open the lock at the same time that another person is pulling a handle, and then they also open up something on the outside of the door, and then they'll help them pull it open. Okay, it's the same thing.
Bezos out there, right?
The only difference is that the New Sheperd capsule opens inside, airline doors open outside, but the principle's the same.
By the capsule, kind of hard to see.
Good? Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Here goes Jeff Bezos to open the hatch.
So bad. So embarrassing. No wonder normal mainstream believers now are scratching their head.
No, I think they were scratching their head at why the women opened the door early. And then they had to tell him to close it, and then Bezos walked over and opened it. That's most of the time when I'm seeing things about that, like, most people don't understand that part of it. And so because of that, some people, like over here, Megyn Kelly is talking about this kind of garbage, but I'm not going to cover that because that's just a stupid conspiracy theory. Okay, she's just kind of saying, oh well, I mean, these people, they opened up the door early, so that doesn't prove that it was fake. It just proves that the women were standing in the inside and they opened the door early. That's all it proves. Okay, doesn't prove that the flight was fake. Doesn't prove that anything happened. Okay,
and starting to ask questions. This Blue Origin has done more damage than good, just like the final experiment did, and has done now.
Okay, Leo, you can't talk about the final experiment. You can't. You had a ticket. Okay? He was willing to fly you down there. You and Nathan Oakley, Eric Dubay, all of you guys that said no to the final experiment, you don't get to comment on that. Because you had a free ticket to go, and you said no. So you don't get to stand there and say, oh yeah, this final experiment stuff. Yeah, BS, boy. Okay? The thing about the final experiment is, okay, I mean, like, here, we'll let him talk about it here for a second, but then I'm gonna destroy him on that.
Initially, they had some momentum and were able to fool some naive individuals. But of course, physical reality hasn't changed because of a so-called observation of the sky in Antarctica.
You'll notice how they're shifting the goalposts now. Before it was, there is no 24-hour sun. Now that they've proved that there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, now it's, oh, well, it may have convinced some gullible idiots, but, I mean, it hasn't convinced me. Just because they saw a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Son, you're shifting the goalposts. They literally have two things, okay? They literally have two things on the final experiment that they can try to use, okay? And the first one was that the producer that Candace Owens sent down there, okay? And I think when I'm done, I'm just gonna end with this, and then we're done, because I'm not even gonna finish out the rest of this thing, because this guy's an idiot, okay? No one should ever take this person seriously. So I'm gonna say two things about this final experiment that these people do, okay? Now, a lot of people put a green screen backdrop, okay, so that they can project themselves. And David Weiss even I'll give him this. Dave Weiss even mentioned that, where he changed a bunch of his backgrounds, and then he went and got some objects that were green, and he showed that when you put an object that's green in front of a green screen, it projects, the computer sees that object, and it goes, oh, I understand. And so Candace Owens' producer, okay, was wearing a jacket, and you can see it in other like pictures of and videos of the time. He's wearing a jacket that has a like greenish blue patch or pocket right here, okay, and it has like the same kind of color on the zipper pull on either side of the zipper, okay, right here. And so, and Will Duffy forgot to turn off, because he sits in front of a green screen. So when he sits in front of a green screen, his computer camera, he has like some software that he has that basically turns on the background that just says the TFE, and it has like the globe and the flat Earth model and all that kind of stuff, and it just sits behind him. Okay, he forgot to turn that off when he did his initial live stream, because you'll see in other live streams that he does, when he brings that guy back in, that pocket is completely visible because he turned it off afterwards. Okay, and so when the guy stepped in front, his green pocket said TFE. And so people cried, "Green screen, fake!" No. Because if they were in front of a green screen, it wouldn't be showing TFE. It would be showing the background behind him. Because if you've ever seen... let me do this really fast. Okay.
Now at Hardee's, My Rewards members get their favorite thirst quencher for just $1, like new hand...
Couldn't get over some of these pictures today with the clouds. We have a few flurries still showing up, but this bigger picture, I mean, we saw everything today. We saw snow flurries. We saw snow pellets called grapple. And you know what? We even saw the very rare...
This is what happens when you're wearing all green, when you stand in front of a green screen. Okay? Now, if they were to like have another camera in the studio pan over, you'll see that she's wearing an entirely green thing, okay? An entire suit made of green, okay? And she's standing in front of the green screen, okay? And this is all that happens. And David Weiss debunked this, okay? On his own. He literally walked in there and he said, "Here, let me show you." And he pulled up a green shirt and he held it up and he goes, "This is why I don't wear green when I'm sitting in front of my green screen, folks. Because I would literally disappear into the background." That's what happened. And everybody cried, "Green, fake, blah, blah, blah." But see, this is what happened if they were actually filming in front of a green screen, this is what the guy's patch and his little zipper pulls would have shown. The little poppers, okay? The parts of the zipper that attach the metal bits, okay? That would have shown, and that would have been what you saw. You would have seen the background, not TFE. And and David Weiss, again, pointed that out. Now, he got roasted by his own people, okay? He was sitting there doing some stuff, and they were like, "Oh, you're supposed to do this, blah, 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 blah." And it's like... And people got mad at him for pointing it out, but he was like, "Guys, you have to understand how green screens work," and most people don't understand how green screens work. Okay? Green screens, it's the reason why, like, if you go back and watch Episode 4, okay, Star Wars Episode 4, from the 1970s, find the original transfer. Okay? Because they've tinted R2 blue in later copies. But if you go back and you watch, like, say, the THX re-release, or you watch the original VHS copies, okay, he's black. R2-D2 is blue. He's silver with blue panels on him. But in the Battle of the Death Star, at the end of the film, he's black. His panels turned black. Why did they turn black, you probably wonder? Well, because they're filming the model against a blue screen, not a green screen, which is the reason why they went to green screens, okay, in Episode 2 and 3, because it was easier than the, and I think in episode 1, 2, and 3, they went to green screens. They started with blue screens, but they went to green screens because they realized that it was a lot easier to key out the green because nobody was really wearing green. There were a lot of people wearing blues, and they had and they had some different things like that, so that's what happened. Okay? So this is what happens when you have a blue screen. Or when you have a green screen, or a blue screen, and you stand in front of it, that's what happens. Okay? Now, the second one that they point to is The Mandalorian. Okay? They will do this. Okay? They'll look at
With Geico, we can easily bundle home and car insurance and save even more.
Yeah, just like that breakfast burrito.
There isn't too much hot.
While filming this scene from Disney's The Mandalorian, given the show's production...
This is what they're doing. And this is what they're saying that it is, okay? Oh, they just created everything in a digital set, and then they just tried to key everything out. Never mind the fact that you're very limited in how you can move and where you can go and what you can do with this. Okay? But also the fact that they did live streams. And they did 360-degree pans around. Okay? And there's no way that you can get that off of that kind of a set. Okay? You can't do that. Because those sets are usually like boxes or they're big things. Now, one of the things... if you've ever seen... Let me look at... No. Let me look at this one here real quick. Okay. Not that Dune. Looking for the 2000 miniseries. Because what they did, here you go. So on the original Dune miniseries, okay, this is the miniseries that was filmed in 2000s, John Harrison's Dune, okay? You can see what they did back there to kind of extend the sequence, okay? They used a technique called translights, okay? And basically what that is that it essentially is a gigantic curtain with a huge set, okay? So they might, send some people out in airplanes over, like, say, the Sahara, and then they'll take some pictures, and then they stitch them together, and then they print these huge curtains, and then they string these curtains up, and so that way, whenever they're out in the desert, they can just look behind them, okay? All the other sets were all done on a soundstage. I mean, everything was done on a soundstage, but all the other sets were done on a soundstage with blue screens in the background, and then just things were digitally added in, okay? This, to do the desert scenes, okay, they just had these big, gigantic curtains, okay, essentially, which sells the effect, but once you know how they do it, it stops the effect. You cannot actually do that, okay? You can't. Once you see it, like it's there forever in your mind, and you'll never actually do it again. And it's the same way with those digital sets. The closer you get to the actual wall, the more apparent that it's digital. Okay? Because you'll start to see that the cameras, they have to do certain scenes to where they can only film in certain directions. They can only film at certain distances, because once the cameras start to get close enough to the wall, you can start to see the LEDs, and you start to ruin the effect. And the digital the digital effect starts to break down. Okay? And the fact that they were like flying drones, okay? And the fact that they were doing 360 live streams and they were doing all of this stuff, yeah, there's no way. There is no way they could do that. Okay? So those are the two things that most people talk about commonly when they talk about this kind of stuff. And Leo here is an absolute moron when it comes to the shape of the Earth. Because he's going to ignore the fact that when you see the U-2 spy plane, they're not using a fisheye lens. The guy's literally doing this with a camera. Okay, probably like a cell phone or something. And so he's going to ignore the shape of the Earth right outside the U-2 spy plane window, but then he's also going to ignore the shape of the Earth outside of the New Shepard capsule because he can just call it fake. So people, don't take anything this guy says seriously. It is absolutely asinine to think that this guy knows anything about the shape of the Earth. Okay? So yeah, has the shape of the Earth changed? No, never. It's still a globe. Sorry, buddy. I mean, I don't know how you can look at the sun, the moon, the planets, and think, oh, those are all spheres, but our planet is flat. That's absolutely idiotic. Hi, Dev. So anyway, smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below, let me know what you think of this video so far, and as we say, we'll see you on the next one.